Helo, siwmai a croeso i bodlediad Tader Trynder gyda fi, Dadi Huw, wedi dod â chi o METALIDADS. Welcome, good evening. It's the Fathers of Metal podcast with myself, Dadi Huw from METALIDADS, and I'm very, very happy to introduce today's guest. It's Howard H. Smith from the awesome British thrash metal band Acid Reign. Hello, Howard, or H, as I said, it's full of H's tonight.
Yeah,
all H's.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Howard H. Smith. And who would have thought I'd get diagnosed with ADHD, and it turns out that the H stood for hyperactive.
Who knew? Who knew?
Well, not me.
No.
Not me for 49 years. And then I did. Because I was a child of the 70s, of course, I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, except it was called having ants in your pants.
Then being hyperactive
back
years
in the
later.
70s, that was it. But thank you very much. It's good to be here. We sort of hooked up over social media. How everyone does hook up these days.
Exactly. And the rest is history. We've married 6 years.
That's it. Yeah. From a post that I put, I admin most of the time. I admin Acid Reign social media, and it's a particular favourite post of mine, which is just about asking for help is a strength, not a weakness, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll move on through all of these various discussions, but mental health, everyone's got it,
Absolutely, man. So just a bit of context for those who are listening now. So I'm on Acid Reign, your band's Facebook page, and just to sort of fill in the blanks, that photo you're talking about, a graphic of it's okay not to be okay, or it's okay to ask for help, not to fail in, not to weakness, etc. I saw that on your page, and I was quite stricken, because with the METALIDADS message, as I mentioned to you before the interview, it's something that isn't very big conversation. It's getting a big conversation in sport, and a lot of sport people, institutions again behind it. But it's just cool lyrical themes currently in metal music, and not many people are talking about it. So really grabbed my attention that, Acid Reign, I've put something on their Facebook page, that's completely what we're about. And I instantly then wrote you a message, and on that day you sent me an email back, and we're speaking now. So thank you again for doing that. And again, it's sort of struck my attention. So what makes you, I suppose, a passionate, I suppose, torchbearer for this message? Tell us.
Well, for a number of reasons. Firstly, I've got to go back a little bit. We brought an album out in 2019 called The Age of Entitlement, nearly, I would say, 70% of the lyrics on that album are about mental health. I mean, the new low, hello. My piece of hell. I mean, my piece of hell is so weird, because that is actually, when I look back at those lyrics now, I realized that song was written about ADHD. The weird thing is that I wrote it before I was diagnosed. And now when I look back at the lyrics, I'm like, oh my God, that's what I'm. So if you've ever wondered why, sometimes people don't say what their songs mean, it's because they don't truly know yet.
No, it hasn't maybe come to fruition or materialized yet, I suppose.
Yeah, so I'm approaching The Age of Entitlement, writing lyrics for it, and our previous two songs, Plan of the Damned, which was about religion, and that was obvious. But we released a single called The Man Who Became Himself in 2017, and that was very much me. That's the title of my life right there at that point. The Man Who Became Himself, because by going into counselling and submitting to things like CBT, submitting is a terrible word, engaging with CBT.
That's probably your original thought, isn't it? It's you're giving yourself over to something you don't trust almost.
Yeah, but that was life-changing for me. And I mean, there's actual phraseology within the lyrics of The Man Who Became Himself, which refer specifically to life traps and things you learn about in CBT. It's all in there. But this band wouldn't even be back together if I hadn't got my mental health sorted out. I mean, we came back in 2015, And there were times in sort of 2012, 2013, I couldn't tie my fucking shoelaces. So, you know, you gotta get down before you can get back up. And I just went to my GP and I just said, look, in fact, to be fair, my GP, who was old school, right? You know, dog under the desk, the whole shebang, right? He called me in and he said, Howard, over the last sort of 6 to 9 months, we've had you in for an ECG, and we've had you in for this, we've had you for... Now, all of those tests have come back negative, but are you sure you're okay? And I just said, no, I'm not. I need help. I'd recently become self-employed, so paying for counselling was out. He said, well, I'll refer you on the NHS, but it's not very good. Well, within 2 weeks, I had a phone call from somebody within the NHS, within the mental health unit, who did a 20-minute telephone interview with me, which was great, because what they established was that I'd done I'd done quite a few bits of psychotherapy here and there. And the last question, would you rather speak to a man or a woman, which I thought, again, was very sensitive. So anyway, when I got there, and within 6 weeks, I was starting a 15-week course of CBT.
Wow.
And I didn't know what CBT was. I got there, the lady explained it to me, and I thought, sounds like therapy for blokes, mate. That sounds like, right, okay. So literally, she used the old, toolbox analogy, as if, perfect for men. And it was just like, look, you've got this toolbox, you've reached this age. Some of these tools that you really trust and that you've used all your life, look at the state of them. They don't work anymore. We need to get rid of those tools, and we need to get some new ones in, so your toolbox got the tools you need for life in again. And I was like, straight away, I was just like,
that's a great
now
analogy.
We're talking. Now we're talking, because the thing is, it's like I said on my telephone interview, my frustration was I'd go for psychotherapy. I'd go for a few months and it'd be great. Okay, fine. See you later. Don't need. And then 6 months, things would build up, and I'm back to square one. So I was kind of like, do you know what? I'd like to go to do some counselling that I feel is actually going to make progress, instead of just repeating that same loop or remaining in psychotherapy forever. Because whenever it's like, can't we get to the, I feel like we're dealing with the symptoms, not the cause. And with CBT, it was the cause. We're getting to the cause. Simply put, as I'm sure you're aware, for those listeners and viewers who aren't, it's a way of managing your internal thought patterns. So in other words, it's a way of recognizing unhelpful thought patterns at source and immediately snuffing them out. And it's really, really weird. It goes on in the back of your mind, the brain, the mind. It's all a very complicated thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it goes on in the back of the mind there. And once you get good at it, it massively helps. Now, the thing is that what the lady who did CBT should have realized was, well, not should have realized, that's wrong. But I responded in it to such a way that in my final session, she said, look, Howard, I've got to tell you, I've never had anybody who has ever benefited from CBT in the way you have. I've never seen anybody take to it the way you have. You've opened yourself up. It's just incredible. You've also self-diagnosed a couple of parts that take weeks and months. Basically, what I'm saying is, have you ever thought of actually doing this and becoming? And it's like, no. But then 3 or 4 years later, I find out that CBT is the only treatment for ADHD other than medication. Okay. And it all comes together at that point. And I realize, oh my God, right. So there was underlying issues there. But I'm just glad that my GP wasn't a dickhead.
Man, Christ, imagine just having your confidence knocked, thinking, it's nothing, or here's some pills. There are no magic pills for, anxieties, depression, etc. On that, for example, like just a bit about my story without going into it too deep. I was basically diagnosed pretty much similar to you, really. It was assistance over the phone from an NHS sort of mental health doctor. I was diagnosed with mild to moderate depression over the phone, and it was I don't know about if you felt the same, but I felt quite a lift. I was almost afraid of having that label and hearing it back by someone I trusted, aka a GP, in a non-judgmental tone, with like, oh, you've got this as well. It's a fucking epidemic type of thing.
Dude, was, just imagine how I felt when I was 49 and I was diagnosed with ADHD, which basically made sense of all of the bits of my childhood and growing up that had never made sense before. So yeah, I can absolutely. And the thing is, a diagnosis is great because it is just like, oh, there's nothing worse than, oh, we don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, and also for you in that situation, somebody putting a name on it, but a GP gives it weight. It gives it like, right, I've got something. But I thought this was just my way of thinking. Yes, that's what you've got. It's like, that's not your way of thinking. That's the way of the human brain thinking when it's low on this and it's low on that, and it's had this happened and it's had that happened, you know. Yeah, I can well appreciate how freeing that must have been.
No, absolutely. And I think I remember the first time I said to someone I had depression, I was so scared saying that out loud, but I knew I had to take that step, because it's just something you have to admit in public one day, because I wasn't as familiar with where we were at nationally with mental health at this point, because it's something I never really read about. But as soon as I did that first step, I thought, oh, thank God. That was another weight in itself, just saying it out loud. Did you hear my own voice saying it, and to say to someone else and thinking then, oh yeah, me too. So's my sister, so's my dad, so's my brother. Thinking, okay.
Absolutely. It's not until, do you know what? It's one of those things that it's like, I remember when my father had a triple heart bypass, and it was, I was shocked and all the rest of it. And I was telling friends, and nearly every friend was like, oh yeah, my granddad had one of those the other week. Oh yeah, my dad had one 2 years ago. Oh yeah. And within 20 minutes, I was thinking, I felt like bringing my dad back and going, it's not a big deal, you know.
Yeah, get over it.
Go back all to work. The time. Actually, that's been retired, hasn't it? It's this now.
Oh yeah, sorry. I can't stop thinking. It's all.
No one knows what that is
I'm
anymore.
from the Peter Kay generation as well.
I'm talking into a banana.
Yeah. Or my grandparents' generation.
Yes. Yeah. So without sorting my brain out, I wouldn't have even got the band back together. So
that's really interesting to know. Just that's obviously a lot of this information, of course, has never been public about yourself from metal context before. So thanks for sharing that with me. Just curious again, just we're just because we're feeling quite comfortable talking about the topics. Medication, that's a taboo in itself within this entire minefield, which is mental health. And I'd always view, even at the beginning when I was diagnosed, I still saw medication as a type of a failure. That was like that was the ignorance I had about it all, and the me on the high horse thinking, oh, I'm not gonna need medication, I'm not a weakling, or all this crap. But then I then had to go back to a GP because there was just a few days in the house after my second daughter was born. I was just really irritated, really angry, and then I called a GP and I said, listen, it's quite normal. There's nothing wrong with doing things like having CBT or having therapy, and then maybe having a little something on the side just to take the edge off. That's the way he described it to me. And I thought, well, okay, I trust you. I trust you more than anyone. So I thought, okay, well, what do you recommend? Well, I recommend the lowest dose of something. So the past, I don't know, year and a half, I've been on sertraline, which is a common one, and on the lowest dose, and probably quite quickly my low moods became much more infrequent, or less frequent, sorry. Negative. And yeah, so now again, that's another taboo I've sort of
well, the thing
defeated, I suppose.
Well, the thing is, and yeah, well done. And again, again, once more, I'm going to take the ADHD route and trump you on that as well. I said no to medication for ADHD the first time. Then I realised what an idiot I was with it on the train home.
Yeah.
It then took me a year to get back in that room and to get prescribed medication.
Yeah.
Because ADHD and the NHS are two acronyms that don't work well together.
I see.
And it's very difficult to get seen on the NHS. And I mean, so I'm on medication, 30 milligrams of dexamphetamine. Okay. That's right. I take amphetamines to calm me down. That is how weird ADHD is. The point is, especially for ADHD, the number one recommended treatment is medication. Okay. Everything else is secondary. Yeah. And that's because there are drugs that work particularly well, like the one I'm on, which it takes the edge off. I spent 25 years smoking weed, self-medicating, literally telling people, oh, it's my drug of choice. It's the only thing that calms me down. And I never once thinking, I wonder if there's more to this. I wonder if I should look into this. No. So I got back in. The medication really made a difference. And I would just like to say, if you know somebody who's been prescribed medication and they didn't take to it very well, and it made them really sleepy, or it changed aspects of who they are, okay, then I'm really, really sorry to hear that. But then do not turn around to other people who are being offered medication and say, don't get medication. Oh, no. Medicine works on the individual human being differently, to every single individual human being. So to anyone listening to this, if they've been offered medication in any way, or if you know some, try it. You can always not take it anymore.
What have you got to lose?
That didn't work. Try it again. I had to try different dosages. Well, you have to start on one brand and one dosage, and then it's all change. So that's what I did. But I had people telling me that I was medicating parts of who I am away, and I thought, do you know what? I'll be the fucking judge of that.
Yeah.
I mean, and not only that, but last time I checked, do you know what? The part that they're medicating away is the part that's been driving people away from me in my life for years. That's the whole point. It's a good thing that they're getting, So basically, no personality changes. Mm-hmm. Your behavior is not your personality. Yeah, you are who you are.
Yeah.
And medication that slightly modifies your mood and your behavior is not interfering with your personality in any other way, in any way whatsoever.
No, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's really, really interesting. So one thing, again, you were talking about, the more we learn about this, you get loved ones sort of come out of the woodwork to then start talking about their feelings, and the reason you didn't know this before is because it just never come in conversation. So just by my own self-diagnosis, I actually found out my father had post-traumatic stress disorder, which I never knew until
I got ADHD. Year. ADHD was handed down by my dad.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. All right, okay. But it's amazing how much you learn about your peers when eventually this topic of conversation, and if anything, you sort of give them confidence to even just bring it up at all, because
also do you know what, you've reminded me of something that that I personally think is as important as the whole try medication. It's not for everybody. I'm not saying do drugs will fix everything, but try it. But something you've reminded me of there, which is very important, whether you're ADHD, whether you're depressed, whatever it is. Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're near somebody, or you're close to somebody, or in a relationship with somebody who's suffering from any of this, just beware of over empathizing, because if you empathize too much, you minimize. So it's like, oh, you know, what's wrong? Oh, well, yeah, blah. Oh, well, I feel like that sometimes. And inside, you just want to turn around and say, yeah, but I feel like that all the fucking time, you know? And it's like, there's bits of ADHD where people go like, you know, well, I go in the kitchen and realize I forgot why I went in there. And they go, oh, that happens to me all the time. And you go, really? How often? They say, oh, once or twice a week. And I say, really? For me, it's about 3 or 4 times a fucking day. That's the difference. So the point I'm making is, yeah, you know, by all means, you know, be there for people, listen to them and talk to them. But yeah, over empathizing and over sympathizing, you can just make things, you can make what are really big things in here seem really small out here when you've said them. If people say the wrong thing, if people say the wrong thing.
Do you know, you reminded me of sort of a theory I have about, I suppose, language use in Britain. Now, you hear very often the sentence, I'm a little bit OCD. When people only mean, I'm a little bit particular about where I like to put my mugs on the mug rack or something.
I like the way, I like my toilet roll facing me as opposed to it being away.
Oh, you're a little bit OCD, of course. That must be it.
Yeah.
But linguistically in the UK, it sort of ties into exactly what you were saying, really, that in the UK, people, I don't know which people, a certain demographic of people don't like to give people the credit to be having a worse time than them, because they almost want to disconnect from anyone having a bad time. So they will hijack very serious things like ADHD, OCD, or even depression, and say they've got that, and it's diluted, it's a fraction, it's not even it at all. And people pass it off like it's the most, oh, I've got this. And people do it with use of language. I don't know, well, I don't know if it's just English, because I speak Welsh, but I don't have knowledge of any other major language to talk about mental health. So I don't know if it's only specific to just the UK, but that's something that irritates me.
I just think it's embarrassment. I think it's people who's like, oh, you know, well, you know, look, we've all got those friends that, you know, if someone close to you dies tomorrow, you know that there's certain friends who won't be in touch for a couple of weeks because they will want to distance themselves from your grief because it's bad for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to deal with the situation. They don't know how to talk to you. So they don't, you know, and they don't ring up. They don't ring up and think, well, we'll talk about something else, because they can't run the risk of ending up talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's their issue.
Yeah,
you know?
Yes, their own problem. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's an interesting topic. So just say this week, for example, or just say recently, you know, of course, for you just speaking as a musician in Acid Reign, with things opening up now, with more musical activity, hopefully for yourself over 2022.
Well, we've already toured in 21.
Oh, of course you did, didn't you? Sorry, my apologies. But yeah, just generally speaking.
We played Wales, mate. We played Wrexham.
Oh, well, I had tickets to see you in 2020 in Clwb Ifor Bach in Cardiff, and I saw that I saw your poster online, or like the post the week I listened to Age of Entitlement, and I must say your album from 2019 is probably my favorite album of that year, and it's quite a special year, 2019, because
very much.
Not you weren't the only band who'd been split up for almost
there was Possessed and Sacred Reich as well.
Yeah, they released their long return to form in 2019. Yes, exactly.
What was that, 2020? 2020.
I can't remember. I can't remember. I have to check it out. But there's been quite a few reunions for 2019. Obviously, you had a few years building up to that, etc., and then got shut down, etc. But my point was saying, just having more musical activity to go up another step, has that just made your general wellness just better, just as of recently, because of that?
Not really, you know. I mean, I think the thing about mental health as well is, you know, you can wake up in the morning and some days you can feel there's a bad mood sticks to you as you climb out of bed, and it's a case of how long it's going to stick to you, or whether you can shake it off. And sometimes it's gone before you even remember you got it, and sometimes it hangs around all day, and that's mental health. I mean, I just think it's a day-to-day thing. And the mistake the traps that people fall into, especially performers, you fall into the traps. Oh yeah, the album will get really good reviews, and that'll help with my mental health. No, it won't. It's like you're gonna wake up in the morning feeling like shit in a really bad mood and go, oh, but the albums have all got really good. Well, that's not even going to make a dent, son.
No, it's not even going to.
You know,
scratch the surface.
Yeah, exactly. But it's classic sort of performer 101. I mean, some of the most mentally vulnerable people are performers, and we literally put ourselves up there to be, you know, ridiculed, to be shot at, for people to have opinions on. You know, it's a weird psychology. I mean, doing stand-up as well. I mean, I'm like, you know, I do a podcast, it's on my own. I do a stand-up, I've got the band. I'm a professional quiz master. I do spoken word. And you know, I mean, that's got to say something about my ego. I mean, I think it's. You like to
bring people together. That's a good quality.
Well, I think it's. Do you know what? Genuinely, I think it's this. Right at the heart of it, right, is me. I'm center of attention. Here I am. I'm center of attention, right? But what I want to do through my ego is bring everybody together and have a really good night, and everyone go off happy. I want to host a really great party, and that is why. So whether you come to see Acid Reign or you see the comedy or spoken word or anything like that, you'll feel welcome, and you'll feel like, yeah, I could go for a beer with this guy, you know, because underneath the bravado and the showy performer is a genuine person that genuinely wants you to have a good time. And if you don't have a good time, I won't.
Yeah, absolutely.
That for me, and that is the difference between all various different types of a performer, you know. But you have ultimately everyone's got to have a good time and be happy for me to be happy, you know. And that's my dad was. Always said this. My dad was like that in a relationship with my mum. All he did, my mother used to say, he lived to make me happy. Your father was only happy when everybody else was happy. Well, he was married and had kids. I'm single and I don't. So I've gone down the same route, but it's just I need 200 people
to make happy
as opposed to my wife.
Yeah.
So I think I might have picked the wrong route to go down with it. But yeah, you know, it's a two-way street. You know, it really is.
That's amazing, man. Thanks for sharing that. And one key, I suppose, variable in all of your activities, really, and that's sort of my next question, is your actual voice. You're the singer for Acid Reign. You said spoken word, quiz mastering, stand-up comedy. Your voice is your David Beckham's foot, isn't it? Really.
We'll talk for food, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk for food.
Absolutely. So I'm just curious. Obviously, I'm a singer as well. Well, I moonlight as a singer. I always have been a singer, as you as well. And I notice, such as life, the older we get, the harder we have to work at making sure our body and our voice can be in its best condition possible. So I'm just curious, obviously it's been quite a while since you guys released your Acid Reign's second album, full-length studio album, to your third in 2019. So what did you have any other challenges in the studio, or were you okay?
Well, the thing is, basically, the reason why my performance on the Age of Entitlement is my best performance so far is because...
I highly agree with you. Vocally, I think it's a brilliant performance.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
No worries.
I'm really proud of it. I'm really pleased with it. I'm pleased with the lyrics and everything else. And that's because, you know, I think it's a good album. I believe in it. But no, I mean, ultimately, I'm older. I know what I'm doing. That's as simple as that. I know what I'm doing now. I know how to get out of my voice what I want. I work with a great producer called Jace Lewis, who was incredibly important in getting the best performance out of me. And it brings you, and it's always, you know, I've always liked working as a partnership in the studio. And Jace was fantastic. And we just, hand in glove, we just hit it off and just smashing it. Loved it, you know. I had a lot of confidence from singing teachers, given to me by singing teachers. In fact, a particular YouTube singing teacher of rock singers that quite a few people might know. I had a few lessons with her before we went on tour for the first dates for the Age of Entitlement, because what I was thinking was basically, look, I've smashed it out of the park in the studio, but I need to be able to pull that off live. I can't be doing that for one gig and then like, you know, hoarse for the other two. Mm-hmm. So I went and saw this particular singing teacher, and she straight away picked up on a couple of bad habits I'd got into. And when she pointed them out, I was like, duh. But I was, you know, aged 18 and 19, 2 reviews in Kerrang absolutely hammered my vocal style and my abilities, and that kind of shit just sinks into your brain like a sponge, and it just sinks in for years and years. So I've never really had a very high opinion of my own abilities, and then I had 2 singing teachers in a row telling me like how lucky I was to be a natural tenor. And the first singing teacher, I was like, oh right, okay, cool.
Great,
she was trying to get me to go to we need a tenor in the opera club. I'm like, I ain't your guy.
Washing my hair, sorry.
Yeah. But the rock one recently, she said, Howard, let's just go through. Can you just go through scales on the piano? I was like, yeah, I want to get an idea for your range. She was like, that is your high note there. That's your high note now. I was like, yeah. She's like, that's a high C. And I was like, right. And she was like, it's a high C. I was like, yeah, I know, I heard you the first time.
Yeah.
What? And she was like, that's amazing. I was like, is it? So, wouldn't know. No. Haven't sat at home going, la 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 la, oh yeah. And she was like, that's amazing. The fact that you can get that high, that you can get the words out. And literally we literally had half an hour where she just absolutely just sang my praises. And I was just, after a while, it was a bit embarrassing. Mm-hmm. I was just like, and I love praise. Yeah.
But even for you, that's too much.
Yeah, but even for me, I was kind of like, yeah, all right, turn it in, love. No one likes to, you know, go on about it. No, go on, carry on. So really, it's about I stay fit as a person, always have, always will, because again, part of that is ADHD. You know, it's like I go for runs. Oh, Mr. Fit. No, I have to go for a fucking run. Yeah, or I'll kill someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it's stay physically fit. I know what I'm doing with my voice, and also try not to. One of the worst things for your voice, in fact, it's probably the worst things for your voice, is not alcohol. Mm-hmm. It's not smoking. Mm-hmm. It's not whispering, although whispering is very bad for you. Mm-hmm. it is stress.
Yeah.
Chill the fuck out.
Absolutely.
Get as much sleep as you can. And stay as level as you can. And I'll tell you what, brilliant piece of advice that was given to me by John Bush himself.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, Howard, because he's just like he's got permanent raspy voice.
Yeah, I'm sure, yes.
Slightly raspy voice. Yeah. He's got full on raspy voice. He's like, Howard, when you do your warm-ups? And I'm like, about an hour before I go on, half an hour before I go on. He's like, bullshit. First set of warm-ups, you should be doing them in your bunk when you wake up.
Yeah.
I was like, really? And he's like, yep. He doesn't sound anything like that.
No, it's okay.
Made him sound
I'm not scoring your accent skills. It's fine.
I've made him sound like an angry gnome. So anyway, I digress. But it's nice to talk about singing occasionally, you know.
No, absolutely. But no. Listen, without going too much onto this point, but this has a point, but a bit of a tangent first to get back to my point. Metallica's album Saint Anger, right? People sort of know it well for being an album they created during a time of great stress and a time of great relationship breakdowns, etc. And when I heard the album in 2003, when I was 14, 15 years old, we were obsessed with guitar solos and all that shit. That's not really important in metal at the end of the day. And we were disappointed that there's no guitar solos, no, they're detuned, and the drums sound like, the snare drum, there's a whole folklore behind Saint Anger. But I hadn't listened to Saint Anger since 2003, and I don't actually remember why I didn't like it. So I listened to it last year for the first time, since I was 14, 15 years old. I didn't give a shit about the guitar solos. Didn't care. Yeah. Didn't give a shit about the drums. Didn't give a shit about the detunings. By this point, I was into death metal, so that was all fine. But what I found so difficult to listen to on that album was how stressed James Hetfield's voice was.
Yeah, his voice. Yeah.
Because the first place is going to suffer in your body about stress is your vocal cords.
Yeah.
So he's singing frantic, tick, 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 tick. He's trying to be angry James Hetfield. He just sounds like he's trying to cry.
He sounds like about to explode, James Hetfield.
Absolutely. So that I probably can't listen to that album ever again, not for the same reason as why many other people don't choose to listen to that album.
All of us said at the time, having seen the movie, that album is just audio therapy. That's all it is. That album was just necessary.
Yeah,
that's all.
Absolutely. Some things are necessary. But anyway, Howard, again, it's been I've really enjoyed just opening up about a topic which a lot of people we tend to speak to don't normally go down, but I'm really grateful.
I'm fine with it. Thanks, I'm fine with it, and especially ADHD. If anybody wants to reach out, come find me. I'm not hard to find. I'm all over social media. Either Talking Bollocks, the YouTube, if you want to get to me directly. Talking Bollocks is the podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Acid Reign, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. In fact, also YouTube as well for all of those. For anybody who wants to have a chat, I'll tell you how I found out or what set me off on my ADHD journey. I was on the phone having a WhatsApp chat with a friend of mine in the States, and she said to me, God, I'd hate to see you on coke. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're bad enough as it is. I can't imagine what you're like on coke. And I said, well, that is where you'll be surprised. And she was like, well, oh, right, why is that? I said, well, because coke chills me out and makes me want to sit down and just chill, whilst everybody else turns into me,
grinding the teeth.
And so basically, she said, it's funny you should say that. I'm the same, and that formed part of my adult ADHD diagnosis. And I was
amazing.
Like, you're what? Like, now I must admit, I hate the term because there's no such thing as adult ADHD. Yeah, and the thing that people use the term adult ADHD means people ask questions like, oh, did you get late onset ADHD? No, ADHD is ADHD, whether you're 7 or 67. It just means that you've had it for 67 years. Yeah. You didn't get, you didn't get diagnosed when you were 7. So yeah, straight away I was like, right, I'm going to go and do some research. And within about an hour and a half of being online, I was just like, my entire life started explaining itself in front of me, or at least a lot of things that are, still true today. So it was a chance conversation that was bizarre, but suddenly made me go, fucking hell. And literally like explaining things like, why do I try and carry too many things? Why do I try and carry too many things? Why do I want to do one trip instead of clearly the 2 it needs? And that's because ADHD, it's a challenge. It must be risen to. And the more things that I have got to keep me occupied at any one time, the better.
Good.
Because I'm either engaged or I don't want to fucking know.
Yeah.
So
100% or
and the thing is that as well that like I've always been like that, but as you grow up as a kid, you get labels as to bad loser, or like just good at sport, or I was intelligent, but I didn't get any of my exams. I didn't get any O levels. Because none of it interested me enough. I was just like not interested, So I'd go. My parents would go to parents' evenings, and they go and speak to my French teacher, and they come home and they go, "You were really good at French last year." It's like, yeah. And they go, well, why did your French teacher say that you're useless? I say, because she's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
that's an important thing as well.
But as kids, even as if you've got children who are like that, say fucking it, it's like, oh, how they say the funniest things.
Yeah.
And some kids do it to the extent it's like, whoa, what's wrong with that child? Well, that was me. Mm-hmm. Because I would say, so why aren't you any good this year? Because she isn't any good. Mm-hmm. Last year, teacher was great. Loved her. She was really good. She made lessons interesting. So I was interested. So I did the work. This woman, not interested, not doing the work. Sorry, her job, not mine. Yeah. And it's like, okay. So it's there could be any kind of spark or anything that find out.
The story of how that came about is amazing, and just sort of to draw a line, I suppose, under our chat tonight is you are never too old to learn about yourself. You think you know yourself, and all of a sudden one person could say something about you that's never been said before, and it's the truest thing possible. So yeah, isn't that right? You've obviously never too old to learn.
Well, can I just say one thing? What I said earlier about over-empathizing, which becomes minimizing, very true. But if I could say one thing to everybody, it's not even a mental health thing. It is just a thing. And that is, if something happens, something bad, or it could be good, but usually it's bad, make the first person you interrogate as to how this happened yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't have something happen and instantly look externally for the blame. Look internally for the blame, because if it is internal, you can keep this shit quiet and no one has to know. That's the beauty of this, right? But if you've done the internal audit and you are not to blame in any way, then you can go around making the accusations and giving it the big I am, knowing that you are in no way to blame. But like when my Australian nephew was staying with me, and he used a metal spatula on a non-stick pan and just fucking destroyed it, right? And he was nearly in tears. He was like, oh my God, I've got it. Like, I got home. And not that I'm some kind of ogre or something, but I got home and he was living with me. And he was like, oh God, look what I've done. I'm so sorry. And I said, look, mate, don't worry about it. Firstly, it's just the pan, okay? And secondly, it's partly my fault. And he was like, what? What do you mean? It's like, well, I showed you where everything is in the kitchen. I showed you how it works, but I assumed you cooked with non-stick stuff at home. And he's like, oh, I didn't know what had happened. I was like, yeah, exactly. So what I didn't do was I didn't say, by the way, this is non-stick stuff. Do you know how to use that? Don't use a metal fucking spatula on it. Now,
another good life lesson.
Now, to some people, I might be going out of my way to make him feel better. The truth is, that is what I firmly believe, because ultimately, it's not about what was your role in it, but also what was your role out of it. As in, could you have done something? So it's not just, right, have I fucked up here? No, blame everyone else. It's like, right, but have by not doing anything, have I was there something I should have done? Yeah. Was there something I should have had my eye on and I didn't? You know, just look at home, and it just leads to a happier existence, in my humble experience.
Great, thank you so much, just for your penny's worth in that regards. You know,
no problem. No problem.
Been really great chatting to you today, and thank you so much for your honesty. It's been great to learn about, you know, your behaviors, your feelings, and your journey. Really, it's really inspiring. So I, for one, I'm very excited to I know you're working on a new album. Looking forward to hearing more of that. So I'll stay in touch with you separately after this interview. Cool. Just for that. And I, for one, looking forward to seeing you live for the first time whenever I get to see you live.
Well, me too. You'll have to come up and introduce yourself.
I'll say we'll definitely have a pint. We'll chat metal, football, mental health, anything you want.
Cool. Yeah, nice one.
Cool. Anyway, so as we say in METALIDADS, whether it's whammy bars or weaning, napalm death or nappies, it's always good to talk. So thanks for talking with METALIDADS today. So I wish you all the best. Everyone. Yeah, take care. Thanks, Howard. Really grateful. And stay heavy and stay healthy.
Always.
Thank you, my friend.